Hello, I'm Chad,
I'm Jordan.
and we are
KAJAM.
KAJAM.
And this is Metroid II, Return of Samus.
Return of Samus, not Samus Returns.
Not to be confused with the remake for the Nintendo 3DS. This game was released in 1991 in America, weirdly in 1992 in Japan and Europe. Not really sure why they decided to wait on the Japanese release there, but does make for a strange little historical footnote where we got the Metroid game first.
No, I didn't.
So here we start, huh?
I don't think I even knew a one thing about this game for the longest time.
Do you even know what Samus is doing here? Did you ever look at the manual or anything when we...
I don't know if I looked at the manual, but I understand the idea is that this game takes place after Metroid 1.
Right.
And she's sent to... What is it? SR-388? Is that the one?
That's right, yep.
And she's here to exterminate what appears to be at the bottom right of the screen, the 39 Metroids.
Yeah,
she's already got her missiles, she's
planet.
already got her morph ball. She doesn't have her morph ball bombs, but she's got a bunch of the equipment she had acquired in Metroid 1 right off the bat. The game does a great job showing that to you there.
Introduce a lot of staples of the series. You can aim downward now, which is nice, and introduce the iconic shape of the Varia suit. There are a lot of little the ship design, all the little iconic elements that got their start here. It's got a very unique structure for a Metroid game. Usually or at least in the first and third games, the series would become known for these large open-ended mazes, but this game and sort of Metroid Fusion as well would drop the player into these sort of segmented non-linear areas where you're just kind of dropped in and supposed to figure it out, and then you've got to figure out one area before moving on to the next. And I think it makes for a sort of strange middle ground of this game between Super Metroid and Fusion, oddly enough.
See, I don't
think it's very much like the first game.
Right, I played Super Metroid long before I played this game. So when I played this game relatively recently, and I got to this exact point here, and I thought, this kind of reminds me of that one room in Metroid 1 and in Super Metroid, where you go left over there and you get the morph ball, right?
Yeah.
So my first time I'm playing, I came down here and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go this way, because this is the way I went where I got the morph ball, and I'm gonna do that again. And as you noted, this game doesn't open up with like a little text scroll. It doesn't really give you anything to go on at all. You're just thrown into it, and you have this pulsating Metroid on the bottom right of the screen with a number next to it. And all I knew going into this game was my mission is to kill all the Metroids. And even though I knew that, I was kind of shocked to see just how simply this game tosses you into it. Your goal is to go after these Metroids, and there's no side content, there's no side quests, or there's not really like a ton of extra stuff to explore and like get. You're here for one thing and one thing only, and it's very direct about that, and I really appreciate that.
Something I appreciate is that all of the Metroid games, even back here in 1991, were very committed to continuing this ongoing story between Samus and the Metroids. And last time you only run into the Metroids at the very end of the game and discover they're the most dangerous enemy in it. And here we discover a new form that the Metroids can metamorphosize into these wildly different shapes, and that was the Alpha Metroid. Every Metroid we've run into in the series so far was merely a larva. When we defeat them...
God, there's so much to say about this. That happened so quickly.
Yeah.
But all I did is I walked over... Oh, I don't want to interrupt you. Go on, finish.
Well, when we defeat the Metroid, the counter goes wild, so it draws our attention. We see there are 38 left. There's an earthquake. Suddenly there's some sort of mysterious disturbance, and we want to go check it out. But there's a little more to find. These husks are often used throughout the game to sort of, yeah, they're done to build tension. And here we found the husk as soon as the Metroid arrived, but often this game is going to scatter them all over the place and build this sort of suspense. We don't know when the Metroid is going to appear, and so it plays around with our expectations.
It's got some refills over there. The core mechanics of this game, like your core abilities, are jump and shoot. You know, it's a lot like Metroid 1. You've got jumping and shooting. You've got this kind of spacey, floaty Metroid jump.
Yeah,
you
where
shoot
you
downwards,
flip
which is like the down step in Zelda 2. Just being able to do this.
Yeah, a little bit.
And if you want to switch between your gun and your missiles, you press select, and it does it. You have to like manually swap between these two, and you can only hit the Metroids with your missile. I mean, they're popping out of these husks. These aren't the Metroids that we fight in Metroid 1. That we freeze them and then we rocket them.
And then, right.
They turn into this new form that is susceptible to the rockets and not your normal pea shooter. So you have to switch between your missiles and your gun and start shooting the Metroids, and the music is this it's this really like Jaws-like
kind of
Breath of the Wild
Guardian theme,
Breath of the Wild Guardian theme music, and you have to like run away and shoot, and you're moving around, and this game somehow makes all 39 of these Metroids an extremely engaging sort of like goal to have. It's not quite a boss rush because there's enemies on the way and there's level traversal, but you're so focused on this one goal, and you never feel like you're torn away from it. You never feel like, well, what am I doing this for? This doesn't really tie into what I'm doing here. And I guess maybe that's a good time to bring up the concept of Ludonarrative.
Right. I have a bit of a confession to make. In the Zelda 2 video, and I left a bit of a pinned comment to correct myself there, I kind of haphazardly threw out the term Ludonarrative when discussing the game over screen where Ganon returns. That is, I wouldn't really call that an aspect of the Ludonarrative in seriousness. That's more of a framing device that contextualizes why the monsters are attacking you in that game. Ludonarrative refers specifically to the story told by the game's mechanics, and when we start in Metroid 2, we've got this kind of swashbuckling music where we have this expectation that we're going on this grand space adventure, but as we go and delve deeper, the gravity of what we're doing in this game, we're systematically eradicating an entire species, it begins to creep in, and the music and the environments reflect that by becoming more twisted, more alien, and more uncomfortable, more unsettling,
and the music follows suit. The music gets real weird in this game.
And we're gonna find that
you just press start and immediately it saves.
Oh yeah, probably the quickest save points of all time.
Yeah.
And this atmosphere is incredibly informed by the limitations of the Game Boy.
Absolutely.
And this is something I think that the channel Game Maker's Toolkit, Mark Brown on that channel, talked a lot about, and talked very well about how Metroid 2 is greatly enhanced. Its meaning is enhanced by the Game Boy. Now, there have been 2 remakes of this game, as we've kind of alluded to. One of them a fan-made remake, AM2R, and Samus Returns on 3DS. Both of them are great.
I haven't played either.
I think AM2R is the better of the 2. But at least in terms, at least in terms of preserving the original intent, I think that AM2R does a better job.
But does it do a good job?
No, I think it does a great job.
I don't know. I haven't played it, but from what I've seen of it, like the monochromatic colors, whether you're playing this in black and white or in pea soup green, I mean, usually I'd be playing it on a smaller screen resolution than this, but I've made it larger for the sake of the pleasure of the viewers. It feels like essential to me. Even the sound of the music coming out of the Game Boy, it feels like this is the only way Metroid 2 could truly be Metroid 2. AM2R looks like really impressive, and it's got some amazing visuals and great music in it, but when you making a Metroid 2 that like controls like AM2R does, or like the 3DS game does, looks and sounds like they do, I just don't feel like it could possibly be Metroid 2.
Yeah, and I can totally get how you could make the argument that this game is just inextricably tied to its hardware.
I mean, listen to this
here,
music.
like, we get to the point where the music is all but cut out. There are only oops, and we have an almost diegetic soundtrack where all we have are the echoing footsteps of Samus, the
sounds of
gunfire, and the various noises that
between rockets and bullets.
Noises that the alien wildlife make.
I mean, there's a song in this game that, like, I thought it was trying to tell me there's some kind of weird Metroid around where it's just making this odd sound, but it's just some kind of animal that lives here making a noise.
Yeah, but I would defend AM2R as an extremely. I mean, I think it's a bit of a slower burn than this when it comes to getting to the weirder side of SR388. Like we spend a little bit longer sort of enjoying this romp before we get into the creepier stuff.
This is a pacing room and nothing more.
Yeah, that's what separates the men from the boys in game design.
Here we're tasked with deciding to go up or down.
And of course we ascend.
My natural instinct is to ascend.
I wonder how this was playtested, and they.
I guess
I can only imagine that most people decided to go out.
I think it's important for me to note that I'm like a really big fan of horror, especially monsters. I love monster movies, whether they're old Godzilla movies or stuff like The Thing and The Fly. And I'm not that into horror games. I don't think I've played that many horror games.
Not a whole lot.
This might be like the...
Dabbled.
I mean, I love like Yume Nikki, which is a bit... I don't know if that really counts.
More of a surreal, abstract experience.
Yeah, this is like a Metroid horror game. And the Metroid Dread just recently got announced, and it looks like it's kind of taking a good few notes from either this game or Fusion. I haven't really played enough of Fusion to know what goes on in it, but I'm sure it's more Fusion-y than Metroid 2-y, but there's at least a bit of Metroid 2 in those Emmys.
I think that Metroid has always had kind of a horror flavor to it. Maybe with the exclusion of Zero Mission, which is a lot more of a comic book adventure, as framed by its art style. And maybe, I don't know, maybe this is a good time to get into the sort of control differences between... when Zero Mission came out and sort of remixed Metroid 1, they stuck to what Fusion started and nixed the floatier jump in favor of something, as the geek critique would say, crunchier.
The most suspicious thing in the world. Oh, look at that. Like, this is one of those, like, Zelda 2 secrets that I imagine people say, well, that's kind of dumb. Like, is it dumb? I guess I'm inventing someone to argue against there. But this feels like a really cool little way to poke at your imagination.
Well,
you shoot this enemy.
On it.
Well, you shoot this enemy, but unlike the other enemies, it leaves, like, remains.
Yeah.
So you're curious if you can stand on it, and then you just kind of instinctively, like, want to see what happens if I try and turn into a ball and move. That's not working right now. There's something going on. Come on, there it is. This game's the code is a little weird sometimes, especially when you get to the spider ball ability. I don't know if I can do anything here quite yet, but now I know this is here.
Right. No, I think it's a good moment.
Sorry, I interrupted you though. What were you saying?
I'd say that the lower gravity of Super Metroid 1 in this game lend more to that sense that you're on an alien planet. It also has a greater kind of skill ceiling to master when it comes to just figuring out how to maneuver Samus properly around these areas. At least in my opinion, because you take longer to hit the ground, you have there's less time needed to correct your mistakes. Right? Did I phrase that correctly?
Yeah. Your jump has less control. Your jump is not. It's got. You can control it, but it's very slow. If you choose to jump high,
there's an element where you have to commit to your jumps when they're this floaty. And I like that a lot. I especially like it in Super Metroid for reasons that we'll get to when we play that game. I mean, and we will. It is the best video game, so can't exactly skip it.
Sometimes these rooms have some secrets in like the walls and stuff, so I always check to see if I'm missing something.
So this game kind of has an interesting loop where we enter these Chozo temples in every area, and there we find all of these upgrades that will enhance Samus's abilities and arsenal, and then we'll venture down into this more naturalistic area where we take down the Metroids. Yeah, now that we have the morph ball bombs, we can get through there.
And you're always... for one, I love the little Metroid icon at the bottom is always kind of pulsating. That's just really... That's a great little detail. And you brought up earlier
lets you forget your goal.
Yeah, and you brought up earlier, when you destroy a Metroid... I'm sure destroy is the word that whoever told Samus to go on this mission used. Whenever you destroy a Metroid, the numbers like go all wild to make sure that you're paying attention to it. And it hasn't happened yet, but at certain points you'll reach a new area, and within that area will be a certain number of Metroids you need to destroy in order to progress. That earthquake earlier wasn't just for show; it was actually whatever caused it. The earthquake meant that all this acid that's kind of pooling up around the planet would regress, would move downward and open up new areas. So when you destroy a number of Metroids in an area, you can then progress.
Possibly caused by the outrage of a monster deep within the planet.
Yeah, there's the definite feeling that it's something biological doing this, because it's directly responding to you destroying the Metroids. And this is what I believe the first example of the game placing one of these husks, one of these shed Metroid skins, before you know where that Metroid is. And the game does this like all the time, but not all the time. Sometimes it will surprise you. It's constantly
playing with your expectations. Sometimes you'll run into a Metroid without seeing the husk, and then come out the other side of a room only to find it after the fact. It's surprisingly inventive with this tool.
Like, I know that if I keep going right, I will encounter a Metroid, and I have to be ready for that. And it's something that I deeply love, is that you have to very methodically, very, you have with a lot of intention, you must press select and switch to your missiles. And I found it extremely immersive to see a moment like this where I get this husk here, and I know that I'm about to face a Metroid. It might not be in the next screen or the screen after that, but very soon. And I have to physically, mechanically ready myself.
It's worth noting that mechanic exists in the other Metroid games where you press the like to switch your missiles, but it's never quite as anticipatory as it is in this game.
I didn't even fall down there on purpose. I just fell down a hole and I was kind of scared for a moment. Oh, look at that.
I believe, did you already mention this is your favorite game in the series? Or?
I did not. This is... I haven't played that many Metroids, but I've played Super Metroid and Metroid Prime. I believe that's it, which is not much, but I've dipped into Zero Mission for a few hours and then very lightly dipped into Fusion.
We've got
I'm pretty confident in saying that this will forever be my favorite Metroid.
In the 2D series, this game, this item rather, is exclusive to this game. It's a spider ball. You can climb all the way up the walls with this one.
And something great is you can activate it mid-air, which
that's
becomes
great.
Pretty useful in a lot of situations. And the controls with it are admittedly kind of janky. Like sometimes the game it struggles to recognize which direction you're trying to go.
Like you hold right, and then you go up a wall, and now you're going left, but holding right, and then you let go of it, and now you have to hold left.
Ooh, look at that secret. What's up here?
I think that's just a little
Little
nook.
hole.
Yeah, it does a lot to make these areas feel like they weren't crafted. I mean, these more naturalistic places, they're
Like, look
they're
at the placement
more
of this spongy stuff here. You can shoot this spongy stuff, and that becomes like really significant later on. Like, there are rooms in the game where there's no way I can go up there and there's like a thing in there, is there? I'm gonna check.
The temples give you the impression there's some sort of intelligent design behind it, whereas these natural places are kind of weirder, kind of grosser, less organized, and
Oh, you know what? I can just go in here.
offers the impression that well, they're a part of the natural world.
And I was going through this earlier. I really like horror and monsters, and the way that the Metroids are handled in this game, and the tone, the atmosphere, and the music, it feels, to me, this is undoubtedly a horror game, and that it manages to be a Metroid horror game on the Game Boy, and it pulls it off so well is really impressive to me. Like, I wouldn't really expect the Game Boy to be able to like handle some kind of weird platform, like action platformer horror game with Metroid, but like it just works because it's so dedicated to what it is. You have this counter of Metroids that you're going after, that you're always thinking about where the next Metroid's gonna be. Like there, I saw that husk of the Metroid, but I didn't encounter one. So it could be anywhere. This Metroid could be anywhere, and I don't know. I'm struggling to find my words here because it's such a unique thing. Like, I haven't played anything at all like this, and it shocked me just how much I enjoyed this game. I guess because, like, I like Super Metroid a lot, but it didn't really speak to my soul in the way that Metroid II Return of Samus did.
Incredible subtitle.
People don't really talk about this game, right? Like, this is, we were discussing before we started the video. This is kind of like an ignored game.
People mostly talk about the remakes and how they're better than this one. That's sort of how they engage with with Metroid 2. Whenever it comes back to the Game Boy one, they're like, it was cool for the time, now it's kind of boring, it had potential, and that potential was mostly realized in AM2R and somewhat in Samus Returns. That seems to be the general consensus. It's the black sheep. People say this is like better than the first game, and I think it is. I think that the first Metroid is more of like a proof of concept for what the series would become than like an extremely competently made adventure open-ended game thing. Struggling to kind of keep this going here. But I think Metroid 2 was the better of them. I think Metroid 2 kind of knew what it was a lot more. Metroid 1's concept was a lot more abstract in terms of its goals. It wanted you to explore this setting without any direction, but in the process they kind of forgot to offer much of anything in the way of... I don't want to just say direction, because I feel like a lot of a Metroid game's soul comes from just kind of feeling your way around, but as we'll see in Super Metroid, they found this balance where they were able to sort of silently guide the player from zone to zone.
See, this is the thing that happens a lot in this game. I assume because of the hardware limitations, I can get a peek at this Metroid just in the corner of my eye, as if I see it in my peripheral vision. But if I want to fight that Metroid, I can't damage it right now. I need to move close to it And as soon as I get close enough and it like notices me, the music kicks in and I'm in the battle. And the game it often like forces you to do it yourself. There's no cutscene when I transition this screen and the Metroid starts attacking me. The game gives me that split second. I mean, if I'm just running, it'll give me a split second to notice what's happening, that I've walked into a Metroid battle. It's kind of it's just, I feel like it's incredible. I feel like it's absolutely genius.
It's kind of reminiscent of what we were talking about with the Orochi confrontation in the previous episode, where you can see it, but it's your responsibility to go over and confront it and initiate the battle. And here you are the Predator. In Samus Returns, they accentuate this by giving you this like beeping radar that gets faster every time you get close to a Metroid. And so you feel much more like a hunter. In this one, it feels a lot more tense. Like you are a predator. You are going after all of these creatures and exterminating them. But there's this sense that, as much as you're hunting them, they're also kind of after you. Or this world is kind of eating you alive.
And I mean, like, the first two Metroids don't pose that much of a threat. But the things that the Metroids turn into, they start evolving further and further and progressing through different forms, and they start to get really threatening. And because you can only hurt them with missiles, missile upgrades feel extremely valuable in this game. Because if you run out of missiles, it's not just like, oh, I might not be able to open some door. It's, if I run out of missiles, I get attacked by a Metroid, or I fall down a pit or something, or I get stuck, and I'm in a battle with a Metroid, I will be completely defenseless. And here I've got the Ice Beam, which is pretty fun. And I do think it's interesting that the Ice Beam was so central to how you defeated the Metroids in the previous game and the following games. But in this game, because the Metroids are changing shape, they're leaving their larval state and becoming something different. You don't need the Ice Beam anymore. Though, we're gonna be skipping ahead pretty soon to show off the final boss. And, so I'm gonna need to give a spoiler warning here. Eventually, you do, again, spoiler warning, again, we're gonna keep up the pace a bit in this one, because the game is so direct. Once you see a couple Metroid battles, you kind of get what the game's going for. So once more, this is your final warning. Eventually in this game, you'll be fighting some actual Metroids. You'll see the counter go all the way down, and you'll think that I think it goes to 1, and you'll think that you're
there's
nearing
just the final boss left.
You're nearing this something that's been manipulating the environment and causing these earthquakes and causing the acid to regress, and you think you're about to fight it, but then the counter goes up, and you start encountering Metroids that haven't changed yet. Just the normal Metroids, and you will need the Ice Beam in order to get rid of them and in order to progress. And if you don't have the Ice Beam at that moment, because all your upgrades in this game, your weapon upgrades are mostly optional.
And the beams don't stack. You swap from beam to beam, unlike in Super Metroid. You have to go and locate the beam that you want to use.
You'll need to go and get the Ice Beam if you didn't have it already, which I thought was pretty cool. And the level design makes that it makes it so that that's not really too much of a hassle or anything. I don't know how much more of this we need to show off, but a lot of this game is getting to these areas with some set number of Metroids that you need to defeat to
and if you hit the pause screen, then you'll see the number. There are only 3 left.
Yeah. So once you find all those, and I'm pretty sure that for the most part they're nearly all non-linear. Like there's no set order to how you take on the Metroids in these areas, as long as you have. As long as you're exploring, because there's not that many upgrades that change traversal. Once you get the spider ball, like, you don't get anything like that again until way later when you get the, what's it called? The space jump. So you just go around with this weird music. mostly alone with sound effects and your thoughts.
And the way that they keep presenting and surprising you with Metroids, kind of, it gets more and more inventive with the scenarios. Sometimes you'll find, you'll find like a much larger Metroid, sort of trying to protect a smaller one, or that like one that sort of you'll circle back around to an area where you killed a Metroid only to find another that has evolved to another form. So, and it keeps up this level of surprise until you reach the end. And I think Metroid's endings, almost across the board, have been pretty outstanding. The first game kind of subverts your expectations of, you know, what an NES game's ending is. Like, you don't just beat the final boss, now you have to escape the planet with a ticking timer. Or you escape from Turian, at least, as kind of retconned in Zero Mission. But here, I think that it pulls off one of the Metroid series' greatest tricks with the ending. And
we will be skipping ahead to the ending. I guess we could do it now. Do you think we should do a little more, or what?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Okay, 1 second. I'm gonna need to commit a sin and to restart using RetroArch. And here we go.
So by now you've got the Varia suit, and as we've noted, it was redesigned for this game because in the original it was just a palette swap, but here they had to portray it as a different shape so that you would kind of know that it's a different kind of suit, and that stuck for the rest of the series. But by now, as you've reached the center of the planet, the other enemies that used to kind of crawl all over the place, they've slowly dwindled and diminished until only the Metroids remain.
There's very, very little life left at this point. There's a lot of, at this end segment, wandering around completely empty walkways. You've got these guys you can stand on.
Right.
And we've dropped the counter down to just 1, and we don't really know what we're about to face up against. But as we wind through these tunnels, we hear these sounds of tunneling and digging, and we get these earthquakes with the acid dropping. I at least got the idea, though I might have already known a little bit what the final boss of this game was. I think it does a great job getting across to you that this is something really large and really scary. It is a Metroid's final form.
And when the counter increases, as we mentioned, toward the ending, make no mistake, those were just born. These are recently birthed larvae that we have to annihilate before they can evolve.
The Metroids that we have to take out using the ice beam.
Right. And remember, we have to do this because because other forces have been using the Metroids as bioweapons. But the Metroids themselves, they're non-spacefaring species. They're not gonna terrorize the galaxy themselves. It's external forces which are using them, and we're tasked with murdering them to prevent other people from taking advantage of their power.
I mean, it seems like I get the sense that they're kind of wreaking havoc on this planet's ecosystem. Because, as you mentioned, like, you get deeper and deeper into this game,
right?
And the life starts... This is trickier than it might look. The life starts to dissipate. So you get the sense that, like, they do need to be stopped somehow, but even if they're parasites, even if they're destructive, they're just another life form that is trying its best to survive.
Right, they're not... I mean, it doesn't offer you an easy answer as to whether or not the what we're doing here is really exactly the right thing. But I do think it's worth noting that you can recognize all these areas we've been through as these temples, and there's the impression that there used to be some intelligent life living here. The Chozo race that raised Samus once inhabited SR-388 to some capacity. But we don't get too much detail on what they were doing here. Maybe they engineered the Metroids and had to leave. For what purpose, we won't know until Metroid Fusion. If you want to, if you want to look at this game's story in the span of the grander continuity. But as far as we can tell, oh, and here's a good demonstration of the Metroid's intelligence. This statue carries the Ice Beam, the one weapon that can defeat, or that can make vulnerable the larval Metroid, and they've made some effort to destroy it.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Pretty creepy moment for an early game.
I mean, the later forms of the Metroids in this game, I don't remember what the name of the one I've got in mind is, but they start gaining the ability to sort of like telekinetically fly or float or levitate rather, and you get the sense that they're a lot smarter than they might look, and then and you wonder like just what kind of animal is the Metroid? Like, is it really, even if they're dangerous, like even if they're extremely deadly and have these powers that like the space pirates or Mother Brain are trying to extort, do they really deserve to be completely wiped out? But even if you
tell
know
us what to feel,
even if you're questioning the morality of Samus's actions here and your actions as the player, you do it. You just do it because that's what you're here to do. That's what you've been told to do. That is your mission. That is your one single goal, is to exterminate
and we
the
encounter
Metroids.
this egg as we tunnel under this area.
So there's so many moments like of such good visual storytelling in this game. Here's where we previously I've already handled them, but here we would encounter some of the Metroids, the newly hatched original Metroids.
Right, we would, if we didn't have the Ice Beam, we would go through here and then fall through a
ditch at the
space
end.
a ditch in the floor, which would lead us to the shattered statue.
You can hear very faintly the tunneling sound, as if it's way off in the distance. It's not able
as you've
to
noted,
really speak up against the music, but you can hear it.
As you've noted, it's this is Samus's mission. It's our mission, and Samus never expresses herself in this game at all. She never speaks. She never tells you anything. But we still get a strong sense in many of these games, especially maybe because she doesn't speak, of the strength of her character, because the things we do as Samus is what defines
who
Samus.
Samus is. Yeah.
And that same principle goes for most video games. That it's the action, the actions we take as that character define that character. Through the gameplay. And the tension builds.
You get this drop here. I mean, like, my god, listen to this. This is, like, horrifying. I don't want to go down there, but I have to. I've come this far. I've killed over 39 other Metroids or something. Like, I have to do it. I have to drop down and face the last
whatever's
Metroid.
Next. Here it is, the Metroid Queen.
One of probably the #1 greatest sprite on the Game Boy.
And it's massive, and it's horrifying, and it has its own musical track, and it doesn't let you pause during this fight.
Oh! See, there's a bit of a... This is not a particularly easy fight, but there's an extremely cool trick you can perform.
We'll see if you can perform it.
God, look at that monster design. Oh, I don't quite remember how to do it.
You can get it.
No. Like this fight. this fight is such a perfect finale to all the fights leading up to it. You're still only able to damage this last Metroid, this Metroid Queen, with your missiles, but it's gigantic and it's shooting these projectiles at you, and you have to make use of the the space jump.
Yeah.
For invulnerability, and you're trying to shoot it in the mouth, and if you manage to learn and figure out this trick, it's such an interesting fight. Like, I am a final boss fiend. I really depend on a game having a standout, fantastic finale, and a final boss is perhaps the most important part of a fantastic video game finale. And I wasn't expecting too much out of this game, because even the Metroid fights alone are so good. I wondered, like, how could they do a boss fight that was as good as all the Metroid fights in this game while still feeling distinct enough as a final boss? And they knocked it out of the park. They absolutely delivered. At any point, a really cool detail is that at any point during that boss fight, if you turn into the Morph Ball, you can actually escape down a little chute to the left. Oops. Uh-oh. Where's this guy? There he is. You can escape down a little chute to the left, but after doing so, you'll have to make your way all the way back to the boss. If you feel like you're losing the boss fight, you're not going to be able to finish it, you can run away, restock your health and your missile supplies, and just make your way back to the boss. It feels like... It's not like you're reloading a save or something. You can leave and try again. It's amazing. It feels like you're fighting the final form of this game's Metroids.
Right, because that whole system where you leave if you're not prepared, it stays consistent to the very end.
You're always able to, generally you're able to, if you can manage it, escape any of the fights with the Metroids in this game. They can't travel between screens. As Jordan said, that is a thing that's just, they keep it consistent. This game is, as a whole, extremely consistent. And I can see why some people might find it sort of boring, but to me, it's really respectable, and it's so engaging as this mission to hunt down the Metroids. I have so many. I love seeing these shedded Metroid skins and wondering where exactly is this Metroid? How am I going to get into this fight? And then you get into it, and the music is pounding, and you're shooting missiles and running away, and you defeat the Metroid, and there's so little fanfare. The only thing the game does to call attention to the fact that you destroyed a Metroid is your suit's counter refreshing and telling you how many Metroids remain.
I didn't
right
mention
now,
this before.
There is one Metroid remaining. It is the final Metroid. That's it. There is a 1 on the counter. I need to go do it, and when I defeat this final boss, the counter will go down to 0.
I didn't mention this before, but in Samus Returns, when to drain the acid, you need to kill all of the Metroids to get their DNA to unlock this massive Metroid door. Like this contraption that will lower the acid in every zone. It does sound like Super Mario Land 2. 6 golden coins, also for the Nintendo Game Boy. Released in 1992 or 3?
Mario Land 2 is okay. It's no Metroid 2.
I love Mario Land 2. It's weird, wacky. But what that does is, there's with the melee counter, and I mentioned how the life dwindles as you reach the end. And Samus Returns eliminates all of that. The music is still pounding with this kind of action-packed vibe. The enemies just continue getting more intense and more prevalent, more difficult. They're all over the place, and they're still swarming you. And you lose any sense that you're in this living place, that there's this story that's happening around you regarding the state of this dying planet.
God, the atmosphere is it's so good in this game. I just didn't expect that a game like this would be made for the Game Boy, and it's as if it could only be made for the Game Boy.
Well, they certainly tried to disprove that.
Oh, I got it!
Oh! But go, 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 go!
I'm trying. Oh my god, it's so cool. It's so cool.
You can deal a lot more damage by rolling into a ball, getting down her throat into her stomach, and laying power bombs. It's an incredible effect, especially for this hardware.
It took me a while to even figure it out. Like, I had the idea. I knew when I got to the boss that there's some kind of trick you can do. Because Jordan told me very subtly, like there is a trick you can do with this boss, and I had to figure it out. And I had the idea of like, can I like go into its stomach? But it seemed impossible. Like, how could they possibly do that on the Game Boy? How could they have it so that I go into the mouth of the Metroid Queen? So I tried it, but I couldn't get it to work, and I gave up. But I eventually managed to get it, and it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. Oh, even knowing the trick, it is not that easy to execute.
Are you activating the spider ball while you're doing that? Because I don't think you're supposed to.
No, I'm trying not to. Oh, it's not a joke of a final boss. At least not for me. I might suck. But
we're gonna give it one more shot.
Yeah, one more shot seems good.
But we would be remiss to not discuss the ending of this game and its importance to the Metroid canon.
Yeah, I'm gonna shut up next time. I'm gonna try my best because I need to show off the ending of this game.
It's pretty essential. I mean, I think everything in this game is pretty commendable. Creates this thick, dense horror atmosphere, and
storytelling with the Metroids is so good.
It's really morally odd, feeling as you're destroying them and ripping through this whole species as you descend deeper and deeper into SR3D8. But I think none of that would have landed as hard without the ending that comes after this final boss.
Yeah, I completely agree. It is an ending that absolutely it's core. It is essential. And part of why I don't really feel bad showing it off is because I feel like if you're not that interested in this game, seeing the ending, seeing this incredible final boss, it might put on display for you what exactly it is Metroid 2 is doing. By far, my favorite aspect of the game is the Metroids, is the atmosphere and the way that it weaves these fights with these multiple Metroid forms and uses their shed skin to set up expectations and subvert them. But every aspect of this game feels just totally nailed. It's a game that I couldn't really talk about this game for that much longer because it speaks for itself so heavily. You look at the game.
There's only so much we can say that will get across what this game conveys. It's
a lot of it you just have to feel.
Right.
It's very reliant on its atmosphere and its Ludonarrative. So it's hard to get across with words just what Metroid 2 is. It's perhaps one of my 7 out of 7 favorite video games that surprised me the most. Because it seems like it's such a simple concept executed so elegantly on such unassuming hardware. I guess I never expected Metroid 2 to be quite as incredible to me as it is.
While I might not hold it in quite the same regard, I still have quite a bit of respect for what R&D1 was able to achieve with this thing.
The jumping sound effects are just... They pierce through the near silence, the droning music, and the sound of the Metroid Queen tunneling. It feels like I'm disturbing a silence. Even though the Metroids are demonstrably having a negative impact on this ecosystem, it feels like I'm not too different from them after all. It makes you feel like a killer, and the ending just drives that idea home. I'm gonna try my absolute best to activate God Gamer mode here. Oh, good start. Okay, refresh. Easily one of my favorite bosses in any video game. No, I activated it! No! Oh god, I was so close. I need to do it again. I need to give it another try.
I gotta do it one more time.
I have to show off the ending of this game.
The ending is just too important.
Maybe I'll make a save state and I'll cheat, even though I hate doing that. Just to save time.
For the sake of the video, you might wanna, yeah.
I might have to do that. I mean, when you... if you don't already know the ending of this game, you will realize just why we so badly want to show it off.
If you played Super Metroid, if you played Fusion, if you played Metroid Other M, you already know what's going to happen here, but it's the way that it happens that kinda... and especially that it happens in 1991 on the Game Boy.
It's incredible.
That really elevates it.
It's unbelievable, even. Like, if you were to ask me what my favorite final bosses in video games are, my first thought would be bosses like the final boss of Final Fantasy VII, or Ocarina of Time, or Pokemon Crystal. Pokemon Crystal has 2 final bosses, and they're both incredible. And and then to think, oh yeah, also Metroid II, the Metroid game on the Game Boy, that got like 2 remakes that people love way more than the original. Like, it's just, it feels so... I was so happy to fight the final boss in this game, to have this game just knock it out of the park with this beautiful finale that caps off the experience perfectly. Like, an ending of a game is, for me at least, it's one of the first things I think of when I'm reminiscing on a game. Is I think about how I left the game, what my final experiences were within that game.
In any medium, an ending is kind of there to tell you what the story was for, what it was about.
Yeah.
What the people who made it cared most about you taking away from it.
And this is that perfect kind of story whose destination so beautifully and elegantly and effectively demonstrates the purpose of the journey.
Nice.
Oh, I could get in the stomach.
There you go.
Oh, she's close. She gets way more erratic when she's really close. Oh, as any good final boss does. It's harder to hit her on the inside of the mouth. Oh!
Ah!
I did it!
And your health refills. And the Metroid counter drops down to 0. And this music starts playing.
That's it. There's this little Metroid hatches. It is perhaps so young, in fact, so fresh, that my suit's Metroid counter does not even recognize it.
That it believes Samus to be its mother. And Samus doesn't take action, doesn't try to kill it. Remember, what a character can do in a video game says a lot about
what that character wants to do.
We can't do anything that Samus would not do in this game, and we cannot kill the last Metroid because Samus will not kill it.
Oh, it's eating. It's so cute. See, those little pellety blocks appear all throughout the game. And we've not been able to destroy them by any means, but the little baby Metroid feeds on them, whatever they are.
That's a little bit of context to every Metroid we've seen up to this point, that they feed on
whatever
this substance is.
It's beautiful music. It's like there's no other music at all like this in the game. This relaxing, this comforting tune is the exact polar opposite of the horrifying, discomforting sounds of the environment we usually hear in this game.
I don't want to linger too much on how this ending was or was not butchered by one of the remakes, but it's just, I mean, the intent, to me, and I'm sure to anybody who really played this game.
See the stars, we know we're on the surface.
It's clear. that this is supposed to be a bit of a redemption for both of you, for the Metroids and for Samus. There's nothing else to fight. There's nothing else to kill.
Oh.
And we can crawl up into the atmosphere and get hurt by the,
Got a bit too high up there. I think it's really cool to use these little stars to describe to you that you're on the surface of the planet. They might be familiar to you if you manage to remember them from the beginning of this game. Because after the beginning, we spend the entire rest of the game underground and in these tunnels and jumping into acid pits and killing Metroids, and now we're...
You hypothetically can come back up, but you likely will not.
We've come full circle, literally, and narratively. We've come back to our ship, our mission accomplished, but not accomplished. We've not exterminated all the Metroids. There's one Metroid remaining, but Samus
refuses to kill.
Decides not to exterminate it, and the ramifications of that decision are felt. The impact it influences a lot of the other games in the franchise, if not all of them, right up to this point.
Just about all of them tie back here somehow, and that's Metroid II. It's a game that has this kind of awkward reputation as the one that came between the first one, the groundbreaking original, and Super Metroid, the perennial masterpiece.
It's a lot like Zelda 2.
It's like Zelda 2 in reputation, except a bit less maligned, more ignored.
Which is perhaps the worst thing you can do to a game, is ignore it.
Mostly skimmed over, perhaps, because the other games kind of...
Other games are louder, they're bigger, and the events of this game's story are easily summed up. Samus goes to SR388. She exterminates most of the Metroids, but spares a young Metroid hatchling. And that is the game. It not just is that the way to sum up the game, that is everything you do. You go down into the planet, hunt down Metroids, do some exploration and acquire some items here and there, but what you saw us do in the beginning, those fights with the Metroids, why is Yuji Horii in this game?
Is that the Yuji Horii?
I have no idea. But maybe it's another person named Yuji Horii. But what you do is it speaks for itself. We don't really need to show that much of the game for you to get the gist of it. It's Metroid 2. It's this little Game Boy horror Metroid game.
Metroid 2 is more of a mood than a full narrative. It's something that, even though we've shown you a good chunk of it, you have all the reason in the world to experience for yourself, to feel what it is.
It's the most ludonarrative game of them all.
Maybe.
The quietest.
We have been to KAJAM.
The quietest, loudest, best game. With the best animal storytelling and best game of all time. We are KAJAM. Give Metroid 2 a chance.
Do it.
Thank you.